You know, usually when folks guarantee it, it means they're probably using some of the black hat technologies. You know, there's sort of within the industry, there's black hat and white hat SEO, and then there's a gray zone, right? Because the engines won't define exactly what black hat techniques are and what white hat techniques are, so that leaves a gray zone. But what ends up happening is, we'll talk about it a little bit later, there's ways of influencing search results in a particular direction, and some of those ways are ways that you can manipulate as search engine marketers, or a firm can manipulate them for you. One of the biggest ones is using particular linking strategies to try to influence search results. In some cases, they may be able to deliver on that challenge, but there are companies that had promised that in the past and actually gotten their customers' sites banned from the search engines because they went too far into the black hat direction. So I would, if I were interviewing a firm like that with respect to potentially hiring them, I would ask a lot of questions about the specific techniques that they plan on using to make sure that, because you can't just take their word for it. If you say, do you use black hat or white hat SEO, and then they'll just say, oh yeah, we use white hat, but then you find out later that your site got banned. So.
What is it? My prospects aren't that sophisticated, and these companies are going after my prospects, and my prospects are like, I don't care what they're doing, they're getting me up on the first page, so
right.
I'm going to stick with it.
Hey, it's buyer beware, right? In any industry, there's going to be a mix of players. If the PR agencies said, we guarantee we can get you into the front page of the New York Times, and you didn't care how they got you there, that I might be a little worried. But yeah.
I don't think that they know. They don't know the questions to ask.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate, because the same thing happened with that firm, right? They took about 600 sites down with them when Google blacklisted everybody that was their client, and it's unfortunate that might happen in certain instances. Now, again, I don't know the company that you're referring to, and nor do I know what techniques they might be using. In a non-competitive vertical, where basically nobody has a clear advantage with respect to the quality of the content or their reputation or reputability, it's not that hard, to potentially take somebody and make them #1 for ball bearing polishing equipment, So in that case, some fairly basic SEO, like what we'll cover, basic to mid advanced, which is what we'll cover today, that might be sufficient, right? So maybe that's all that the firms are doing. I'd be willing to bet that for keyword travel, there isn't a single SEO firm in the world that could get a new site to displace the people that are coming up #1 for keyword travel. It would not happen. It would require probably $1 billion worth of media to displace the folks who are coming up #1 for keyword travel in any of the major engines. There's so much momentum in the way that the engines actually rank, and we'll talk specifically about how they rank and why it takes a tremendous amount of leverage to displace people, when they have a good ranking. Go ahead.
When you were talking about organic search with keywords, and you had commented about you belong sometimes and you don't belong other times.
Right.
Can you give some more definition of who might belong to the place and who might not belong? Because firms can sell anything, as he had mentioned.
Sure.
But as in terms of managing vendors, how do you get into the details on working through that?
It's particularly in SEO, the vendor relationship should be very much a partnership, right? Because if they're doing white hat SEO, it's going to require a lot of work on your part, to add content to the site, tweak the way content is being displayed and presented to the search engines, perhaps changing technology a little bit, changing site structure a little bit. So if they're doing it without any of those things, then it's almost guaranteed they're using black hat techniques, right? And that's high risk, high reward. You might get away with it. It's like doing 190 down the LIE in your Ferrari. You can do it, and you will get from point A to point B faster, but there's a risk associated with it, right? And that there's a continuum of risk. So, doing 65 on the LIE, well, that's still breaking the speed limit, but less likely to get caught. All right, 70, 80, 90. The risk-reward ratio changes as you move down that continuum. So, if you get nothing else out of today, what I'd hope that you walk out with is a firm enough understanding of the fundamentals of SEO that you can either engage in it yourself or make a much more intelligent decision with respect to hiring professionals who might help you. So, hopefully, I'll tell you enough that you can pretty much do it yourself, because it's not rocket science, and it's not voodoo, and it's not a secret sauce. It's all fairly straightforward. There are little, nuances that might get you that extra 3% or 4% lift, but the vast majority of it is to my earlier point, getting a site that really belongs there, that has great content, is very reputable, would be somewhat, would win the majority if you polled everybody who knew about that industry. Oh, who's good at this? They would sort of win that. Then they'll probably also be considered most relevant by the search engines. You see a lot more uniformity now between the top search engines and search queries. So if you were to do the same search query in multiple engines, it's not necessarily they all pick the same number one, but you tend to see very similar results because they're using algorithms that do in fact try to identify the most reputable, high quality content and sites and sort of float those up to the surface. And I think as we go through and sort of discuss how they get there, I think the concept of floating best to the surface will start to clarify a little bit more for you, and if it doesn't, ask the same question this afternoon. SEM and SEO have to coexist in your marketing plan. So to the earlier question, how do I decide? While between 55 and 85% of the people often click on the algorithmic results, that varies based on the query. It varies based on the engine. I've seen in some engines where it's gotten to the point where only 30% of the people click on the algorithmic. This is actually a somewhat older statistic. Domination of paid or organic alone is not going to win you the full game. It's only going to get you part of the slice of the pie. So you need to try to find the right balance between organic and paid. A lot of clients will ask us, even if they have good organic listings for particular search terms, should we also engage in paid? And most of the time when we do pulse testing of the paid ads against that, usually the incremental lift of the paid ads in conjunction with the organic actually pays for itself. You can also message differently against the two links, right? So if your organic listing comes up with a particular message in the title and description, you could actually slightly vary that title and description in your paid to allow yourself to capture two people who are thinking slightly differently about the search that they just did.